In a year where nearly every day has a headline that has me wondering if the world has gone completely mad, this week, EA has agreed to a $55 billion deal that will take the company private and into the hands of Saudi Arabia and Donald Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner. On Monday, EA announced that it has entered into an agreement with PIF, Silver Lake, and Affinity Partners to be purchased and taken private for the staggering sum of $55 billion. The transaction represents the largest all-cash sponsor take-private investment in history, according to the press release sent out by EA. The deal isn't finalized yet, as it has to be greenlit by EA's stockholders and the usual regulatory approvals, such as the FTC. If all goes through, the deal will close in Q1 of 2027. It's being structured as an equity investment of $36 billion and $20 billion of debt, which is just one of the many red flags around this deal. I'm going to be clear before going further on this that I'm not an expert in public financing or the inner workings of things like the Saudi government, nor do I know what the larger implications of this deal will be, because nobody does yet. So, who is exactly buying EA, you might be wondering? Well, PIF is the Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia. This fund is headed up by Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, who is the acting chairman of the firm, and its primary goal is helping to diversify the economy of Saudi Arabia away from their reliance on oil. They've made investments into too many companies to list in this video, but you've probably heard of Uber, Boeing, Meta, Disney, Bank of America, and many more. On the video game side of things, they've purchased stakes in Capcom, Nexon, Take-Two, Activision Blizzard, Nintendo, and Embracer Group. EA will be the first that they have a majority ownership stake in. If the name Mohammed bin Salman rings a bell for you, it's probably for the brutal murder of Jamal Khashoggi, who is a Washington Post columnist critical of the Saudi prince and his reform policies in Saudi Arabia, not to mention the many human rights abuses and the highest rate of slavery in the Arab region. As for Affinity Partners, that's headed up by none other than Donald Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner. Interestingly, the firm is primarily funded by PIF, and before EA, had no ties to the video game industry that I can find. However, there are allegations behind the scenes that Kushner received the investment from the Saudi Crown Prince for his staunch defense of him during the Khashoggi investigation. Finally, Silver Lake seems to be one of your usual private equity firms for the most part, but reporting around the web indicates that Kushner was key to helping secure the EA buyout deal for the firm alongside PIF. And that leads us to the very obvious corruption in our current shaman of an administration, as the FTC will have to approve this sale, which will undoubtedly go through. Without getting too into the weeds in all this, the FTC is currently embroiled in a battle to retain its independence from Trump, and so far, it's losing. The current head of the FTC, Andrew Ferguson, is another Trump appointee who, according to MSNBC, wants to vigorously enforce antitrust laws, but he's also said he wants to target DEI collusion and crack down on the tech industry for allegedly censoring conservative viewpoints on social media platforms. With that in mind, the administration's ties to the Saudi government, and of course Kushner being the son-in-law of Trump himself, pretty clear there's going to be little to no pushback on this deal going through, as it helps to enrich friends of Trump and the Trump family itself. What that means for the future of EA's games, nobody knows yet. As I mentioned before, this will be the first time that the Saudi investment fund will have the majority control over an American video game publisher. For now, Andrew Wilson is remaining as the CEO of the company, but I have no idea what EA will look like after this deal closes in 2027. However, with the $20 billion of debt now straddling the company, I think we have a pretty good idea of where things are headed in the short term. Apparently, investors do too, as Jason Schreier posted on Blue Sky that his colleagues at Bloomberg have reported that the EA deal is expected to be rated single B, meaning it is considered a junk loan, or one that is high risk and speculative, typically offering high interest rates. Schreier also said exactly what a lot of industry professionals are thinking. EA will most likely undertake a lot of cost-cutting measures soon to pay off that debt. That means more layoffs, more monetization, and most likely more studio closures within EA, as they put their resources into their biggest moneymakers, their sports titles, mobile titles, and presumably the Battlefield franchise. According to Insider Gaming via Financial Times, EA's new owners also plan to heavily integrate AI into the company to boost EA's profits in the coming years.
Sure, Dan.
I mean, if I were to write a list of all the different things that would not make me confident in a company's future, I don't think I can make it much more comprehensive than this. For my own speculation on this matter, I would guess that BioWare is either going to be sold off or close entirely within the next 12 months. With the amount of money that EA now needs to make up, I just don't see any future for the types of games that BioWare makes within that structure. Not to mention, I can't really imagine that the people who work on Dragon Age or Mass Effect wanting to make games under the control of the Saudi government for very obvious reasons. I'm not concerned about the next Jedi game or the tactical strategy game Star Wars Zero Company being affected by this deal. Though, I am concerned for Respawn as a whole, as Apex Legends has long passed its apex, the popularity, and the studio has suffered cancellation after cancellation of non-Jedi related projects. My fear is that the talented studio will end up in a situation where they just become another support studio for the Battlefield franchise, much like so many of Activision studios became for Call of Duty. The Sims is a huge moneymaker that's also what the new owners would consider woke. Will that franchise see major changes to appease EA's new owners, or does it make too much money for them to care? Will it turn into a gacha franchise to bleed its biggest fans for even more money than they're already paying for its ridiculous DLC model? There are a lot of questions surrounding all of this that nobody's going to be able to answer for some time yet. With PIF having majority ownership after this deal closes, will the games EA makes be hit with sharp censorship, clearing out anyone within the company that the Crown Prince or Kushner believes is woke? Will they release games made completely by AI? Will the current employees of EA even stick around for its new ownership? All I can say as an observer is that none of this sounds good for the industry at large. A state-controlled large video game publisher with the son-in-law of a wannabe dictator having part control over it and a private equity deal that will likely spell disaster for the many people working at EA, while the stockholders and top management brass reap the rewards. Maybe we'll get lucky, and some of the many IPs EA is sitting on will be freed up and allowed to go to other companies. As Darren covered in his excellent episode of The Backdrop this week, what's happening now in the media industry? I'm afraid it's coming for the video game industry too. If you paid any attention at all, you'll have noticed the constant harassment of people working at video game studios and the lack of any of the major companies taking a stand to protect their own employees in any real way. The website's listing, doxing, and targeting people who are not fans of the current regime, and people like Elon Musk specifically saying they want to impact the industry by removing any ideology they do not agree with. These powerful people with money will try to push their way in, and the people running these companies will capitulate to them as long as they're rewarded monetarily for it. Maybe that's a doomer's view on all of this, but there's a lot of money to be made in video games, and the vultures are always ready to pick it apart where they can.